It's July 5th here in Seoul, and I'm Kim Dami. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour, starting with the IAEA's final verdict on Japan's Fukushima wastewater release. The chief of International Atomic Energy Agency has given his approval to the safety of the release plan, but it's unclear when the final call by Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida will be made due to strong opposition from Japanese fishermen and surrounding countries like China. South Korea's capital and central region were soaked with torrential downpours overnight. The monsoon rain will take a break today in those areas, with the return of sizzling hot temperatures in the afternoon. Russian President Vladimir Putin says his country is still united and developing steadily, despite the recent mutiny. Meanwhile, the Wagner Group chief Yevgeny Prigozhin insists the insurrection against the Kremlin was a march for justice. We start in Japan this morning. The IAEA has technically given the country the okay to release the Fukushima wastewater, saying the plan is safe. Our foreign affairs correspondent Bae-eun-ji starts us off.
The UN nuclear agency, the IAEA, has released its final report on the safety of the discharge of Fukushima wastewater and gives Japan the green light to release the water into the Pacific Ocean. The comprehensive report said, following a 2-year review, the IAEA finds Japan's plans to be consistent with the international safety standards. The agency's chief, Rafael Grossi, who arrived in Japan on Tuesday morning, handed over a thick blue folder containing the report to the Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida.
The plan, as it has been proposed and devised, is in conformity with the agreed international standards.
In a meeting with the IAEA chief, the Japanese leader stressed that he will not allow a discharge that would have a harmful impact on human health and the environment of Japan and other countries.
Japan will continue to provide explanations to the Japanese people and the international community in a sincere manner based on scientific evidence and with a high level of transparency.
IAEA's approval was something that was widely expected, as the agency has already been saying that samples of the wastewater from the Fukushima plant meet requirements. In its previous 6 reports, the agency said it found the measurement to be, quote, accurate and precise. During Grossi's 4-day visit to Japan, which ends Friday, he will also travel to the Fukushima Daiichi plant to inspect the site and visit an IAEA office there, which will newly open upon his visit. Grossi will then visit South Korea from Friday to Sunday to provide a detailed explanation of the report to the Korean government. He will sit down for talks with the country's foreign minister, Park Jin, and the chairperson of the Nuclear Safety and Security Commission, Yoo Guk-hee. But regardless of the IAEA's assessment confirming the safety of the water, South Korea will likely continue to ban imports of seafood from Fukushima. The Japanese government earlier said it plans to start releasing the wastewater into the ocean sometime this summer. Now that it has received the IAEA report, it will soon announce the exact schedule for the release, a process that will be carried out over the next 3 to 4 decades. Bae-eun-ji, Arirang News.
And the South Korean government will announce its opinion of the IAEA's final report today. Ahead of the government statement, the country's lawmakers released mixed reactions to the report on Tuesday. Representing the ruling People Power Party, its senior spokesperson Kang Min-guk said that the party, along with the Yoon administration, will do their best to negate the worries of South Koreans and ensure their safety. In contrast, the main opposition Democratic Party concluded that the report is, quote, empty, adding that it does not show the results of the test or inspection results of the liquid processing system's performance sufficiently. The two parties are holding emergency meetings to discuss the issue this morning. But still, it's unclear when the disposal will be made, with remaining opposition, both within Japan and from overseas. Our Choi Soo-hyung reports.
As of now, the only remaining step for Japan's plan to release contaminated water from the Fukushima nuclear power plant is Prime Minister Kishida's decision to initiate the discharge. On Tuesday, the International Atomic Energy Agency concluded that Japan's plan to discharge contaminated water is in line with international standards. However, there are still concerns not only from neighboring countries but also from within Japan. Within Japan, local fishermen and politicians have raised concerns. On July 4th, Japanese broadcaster NHK reported that the Miyagi Prefecture Local Assembly unanimously adopted a statement opposing the discharge. Local fishermen also continue to oppose the plan. Following the IAEA's report released on July 4th, China held a special press conference. During the conference, China stated that the IAEA's report does not guarantee the legitimacy and legality of the discharge. China said that the IAEA is an organization that promotes the peaceful use of nuclear energy and is not suitable for assessing contaminated water. On the other hand, the United States supported the discharge decision, citing the scientific basis of the IAEA's report. A spokesperson for the U.S. Department of State said the report stated that it reflects the international consensus from all member countries. Choi Soo-hyung, Arirang News.
Vice ministerial-level talks took place in Beijing between South Korea and China against a backdrop of soured diplomatic ties. According to Seoul's Foreign Ministry, Deputy Foreign Minister Choi Young-sam on Tuesday held a meeting and a luncheon with Vice Foreign Minister Sun Wei-dong at the Chinese Foreign Ministry. The two discussed ways to develop stable relations and stressed better trade promotion, stable supply chain management, and efforts to expand person-to-person and cultural exchanges. The meeting was the first high-level talks between the two countries since comments made by China's ambassador to South Korea last month, which warned Seoul against making a wrong bet when it came to the China-U.S. rivalry. Torrential downpours that swamped the capital region overnight are taking a break today, bringing the summer heat back. But the central parts of the country are still seeing heavy rain. Our Lee Sin-ja has the latest.
Heavy rain warnings issued in Seoul and the metropolitan regions have been lifted as of 2 a.m. Wednesday as the rain clouds moved east. While Seoul and its surrounding areas seem to have avoided the worst of this season's monsoon rains so far, other regions could still be affected. Heavy rain warnings have been issued in Daejeon, Cheongju, and northern regions of Gyeongsangbuk-do Province. Other regions that were issued the same warnings include Jeollabuk-do Province. Heavy rainfall of 10 to 30 millimeters per hour can be expected in the affected regions. While no casualties have been reported overnight, the Central Disaster and Safety Countermeasure Headquarters said Wednesday that there was some damage caused in the Seoul metropolitan region. This includes 7 homes and stores that were flooded due to the heavy overnight rain, with some trees also reportedly damaged. 423 households in Gyeonggi-do Province lost power late Tuesday night. Currently, access is restricted to 414 trails in 14 national parks, including Bukhansan, Wudungsan, and Jirisan. Heavy rain is expected in different parts of the country throughout Wednesday, with southern regions of the country expected to see 20 to 60 millimeters of rain. According to the Korea Meteorological Administration, this year's monsoon season should be similar to previous years and is expected to last for a total of 32 days. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
South Korea's finance ministry has cut the country's economic growth projection. To revitalize the country's economic vitality, a new economic policy direction for the latter half of the year was unveiled on Tuesday. Our economic correspondent Shin Ha-young reports.
As price hikes in South Korea continue to ease, the government has slashed its inflation outlook for the year from 3.5% to 3.3%. However, it has also lowered its growth projection for 2023 to 1.4% due to a sluggish performance in the first half. Despite this cut in its economic forecast, the government expects the economy to gradually recover in the second half of the year and more substantially starting next year. Mentioning this, Finance Minister Chu Kyung-ho announced on Tuesday the economic policy direction for the latter half aimed at improving the country's economic vitality.
The country's economic conditions have been gradually improving, but economic uncertainties still remain in the global economy and financial markets. In the second half of the year, the government will focus on enhancing economic vitality, stabilizing people's livelihoods, improving the economic structure and future preparation.
First, the government will focus on boosting sluggish exports, as these will play a significant role in the country's overall economic rebound. It'll do so by injecting record-breaking trade financing of 184 trillion Korean won, or roughly $140 billion during the second half. The government also aims to stimulate domestic consumption by boosting tourism. To encourage off-season travel, 300,000 vouchers worth $23 each for accommodation will be distributed in November. To attract more foreign tourists, 700 free round-trip flight tickets will be given out in July and August, targeting visitors from countries such as Japan, Taiwan, and China. As for improving the country's economic structure, it will focus on fostering science and technology as well as cutting-edge industries and expand joint research at the global level. The government aims to promote this and nurture key personnel by partnering local research institutions with ones in the U.S. Additionally, it is planning to expand its R&D and technological cooperation with the EU by having further talks on Seoul joining the EU's Horizon Europe Research and Innovation Program. South Korea could also soon expand tax benefits for video content makers to the same level as those for chip makers. Currently, the tax credit for conglomerates making video content is 3%, while for small and mid-sized businesses, it stands at 10%. The revised tax credit for video content makers is yet to be announced, but tax benefits for chip makers have been raised to a maximum of 25%. 신하영, Arirang News.
Ice cream is a perfect snack all year round, but especially during the summertime. It's long been considered an affordable treat, but not so much these days. Why? For more, we're joined by Professor Kim Se-wan this morning. Welcome back to the program.
Good morning.
The price of ice cream has risen over 20% over the past 2 years. Professor, what's behind the dramatic jump?
Personally, I'm such an ice cream lover, so I can see that ice cream price increase in a large scale in the last 2 years. Manufacturers, which are mostly large firms, point to increasing raw material cost and as a driving force behind their decision to raise wholesale prices. Supermarkets and other distribution channels already implemented price hikes back in February, and convenience stores are gradually adopting the increased prices in a sequential manner. But it should be noted that the raw materials like sugar, flour, and milks, international prices are dropping quickly from last year. In addition to last 2 years' rise, convenience stores are raising prices for ice cream by double digits starting next month, following consecutive increases in wholesale prices.
Right, rising by double digits, that's a huge jump.
Right.
But the thing is, Professor, it's not just ice cream. It's ramen, snack foods, bread, and even pastries. Now, the government rolled up its sleeves to tame those prices as well. Now, is there a possibility that the government will do the same to ice cream? I mean, if they do, will that pressure work on them?
Well, we have a different situation for ramen compared to the ice cream. We know that ramen became almost daily necessary to many Koreans, particularly to low-income people, while ice cream did not. So government does not see that ice cream and coffee and pastry and breads are as important as ramen to Koreans. It means that Korean government is not likely to impose a pressure to stabilize ice cream price. But ice cream is still one of the 490 items in the CPI basket, which is a basis for calculating inflation. So if ice cream price increases more than, say, 50%, there is a possibility for Korean government to intervene the ice cream market to stabilize overall inflation.
Right. I guess ramen is more considered as a meal over ice cream, right?
Right.
Right. Then, as I mentioned earlier, ramen prices have gone down, like you've mentioned as well. For instance, one of the much beloved ramen products, Shin Ramen, both at home and abroad, had its price lowered for the first time in 13 years. Now, how much of an economic effect can we actually feel it as consumers then?
Price of ramen gives more impacts on general consumer price index than any other food item. Therefore, lower ramen price is a good news to stabilize inflation further. Actually, ramen is one of the 490 items in calculating general consumer price index, but it has more power in calculating price level because ramen sale is larger than any other food items in the CPI basket. So in the whole economy level, lower ramen price provides stronger momentum to stabilize inflation along with declining oil prices and agricultural products prices.
Right. Actually, yesterday, I remember exports of ramen came to a new record high for the month of June, I remember. So exports are also going up, and also the amount of ramen that we consume here in the country are also on the rise. So maybe that's affecting the price.
Right.
Then let's talk about the inflation overall. The country's inflation last month hit the 2% range for the first time in 21 months. That's largely driven by oil prices falling to a new record. Should we see this as an inflation relief? What do you think? I mean, what's your outlook on the nation's inflation in the second half of the year, now that we've entered July?
It is true that domestic inflation is quickly cooling down to 2% level or near after the peak of 6.3% in July last year. And this level of inflation, which is 2% level, is already very close to Bank of Korea's target inflation rate of 2%. But it is expected that inflation will stay around 2% level without fast decrease by the end of this year. In June, inflation eased for the 5 consecutive months to the lowest in 21 months is at 2.7% on year. But the core inflation, which excludes volatile food and energy prices, rose 4.1% on year, which is higher than previous month, 3.9%. This is a major signal that inflation does not quickly decrease in the near future. And the inflation outlook is still highly uncertain because the risks from global oil prices, economic growth, and public utility price increases.
Right. All that because of those global variables remaining underneath. Now, before we let you go, Professor Kim, the country has lowered the country's economic growth outlook to 1.4%, right? Now, were you surprised? Right. And do you think this is a doable goal?
Well, as of now, it is something like a doable goal because for the last half year, 6 months, Bank of Korea and KDI, which is the major think tank of Korean government, has been lowered the forecast of this year's Korean economic growth from 1.9% to below 1.5% level. That means overall this year is not as good as last year in Korean economy. However, as export picks up from last month, it is pretty possible to achieve 1.4% economic growth by the end of this year.
Sure, and let's also see how the country's new economic policy direction will play out for the second half of the year, including boosting exports and also tourism that we can much expect from all the pandemic years.
Right.
All right, Professor Kim Se-hwan, thank you so much for your insight, as always.
Thank you very much.
Let's look at what's going on in the world now. Russian President Vladimir Putin says that the Russian people are united as never before and that the country is developing steadily. He made the remarks on Tuesday during the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit. Attending the summit virtually, Putin addressed other leaders from China, India, Pakistan, Iran, and 4 Central Asian countries. He said Russia will resist pressures imposed on it by what he called illegitimate sanctions and the hybrid war in Ukraine. It marked his first international appearance since an armed mutiny by the Wagner mercenary group threatened Moscow only 10 days earlier. The mutiny ended after Wagner Group leader Yevgeny Prigozhin made a deal with Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko. Prigozhin has since made his first remarks after arriving in Belarus last week. He uploaded a 41-second voice message on Telegram on Monday local time where he thanked supporters of the failed uprising. He added that the so-called March for Justice was mainly aimed at fighting traitors and mobilizing our society. In the United States, just ahead of the 4th of July celebrations on Tuesday, a series of mass shootings have left at least 10 people dead. On late Monday evening, 3 people were killed and 8 wounded after a local festival in Fort Worth, Texas. Just a few hours earlier, 5 people were killed and 2 were injured in Philadelphia when a gunman wearing a bulletproof vest opened fire on strangers. That came a day after 2 people were shot dead and 28 were injured at a street party in Baltimore. Motives of all 3 shootings are still unclear. U.S. President Joe Biden has condemned the shootings and called for tighter gun laws. So far this year, the U.S. has seen over 340 incidents of mass shootings and gun violence. Also in the U.S., 4th of July hot dog eating contest champion Joey Chestnut has kept his title. The 39-year-old has successfully beat back his challengers on Tuesday at New York City's Coney Island, making it his 16th career win. Chestnut ate 62 hot dogs in just 10 minutes. He was way ahead of runner-up Jeff Asper, who managed just 49 hot dogs. Despite the win, Chestnut failed to beating his world record, 76 hot dogs set in 2021. The day also saw Miki Sudo win the women's version of the competition for the 9th time. She ate 39.5 hot dogs in 10 minutes. Young-eun, Arirang News.
Good morning. There were heavy showers across Korea overnight, especially in parts of Gangwon-do province, including Cheollon and Chuncheon, were soaked by the massive rainfall. And until this morning, the south coast of Gyeongsang-Namdo province and Jeju Island could see 30 millimeters an hour of heavy rain pounding down, with a heavy rain advisory issued on Jeju. So the island could see up to 30 millimeters of rainfall. The rest of the east can expect lingering rain through the morning. Then sunnier and quieter condition is set to make a return this afternoon. Top temperatures in Seoul will be similar to yesterday, topping out at 29 degrees Celsius. Daegu will be much hotter at 32, along with very high UV rays nationwide. So sun protection items are a must by the time you head out for lunch. Also brace for strong winds today. Monsoon rain takes a break for a couple of days and returns at the end of the week to southern parts of the country, while temperatures remain on the hotter side. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
We thank you for watching New Day at Arirang. Stay safe wherever you are.